Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to a kind of sort of part 2 to lesson 14 in Wit and Wisdom. Right now, you are going to do what is called a new read assessment. What that means is I am going to be testing your knowledge about what you already know and can figure out from our text, Ruby Bridges Goes to School, My True Story. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at text and pictures from our text to answer some questions. Are you ready? Let's get started. All right, number 1. Who do you see in these photographs? Name or describe them. So in these photographs, who are the people in these photographs? In the puzzle, I want you to write, who are the people in these photographs? So in these photographs, we have Ruby Bridges, we have her mother, and we have the U.S. Marshals that were walking her into the school. Number 2, it says, which sentence best tells why the marshals are there? I'm going to read that again. Which sentence best tells why the marshals are there? A, in 1961, I was in first grade. B, my mother took me to the France school. Or C, marshals came with us to make sure we were safe. Which sentence tells us why the marshals are there? Tell me in the puzzle. So letter C tells us why the marshals are there. Not only that, but it is the only sentence that uses that topic-specific word, marshals. Letter C tells us why they were there, to keep Ruby and her mother safe. Number 3, it says, according to the text, what are Ruby, her mother, and the marshals doing? According to the text, what are Ruby, her mother, and the marshals doing? Let's look at the text. In 1961, I was in the first grade. My mother took me to the France school. Marshals came with us to make sure that we were safe. What were the marshals, Ruby's mother, and Ruby doing? What were they doing in the text? Tell me in the puzzle. The text tells us that Ruby was going to France school in the first grade, and her mother and the U.S. Marshals were walking her there. That is what the text says. Let's look at number 4. It says, look back at your answer to question 3. What details from the photographs also make you think that? Write at least one complete sentence. So what details from the photo tell us that Ruby, her mother, and the marshals were taking her to school? What details do you see in the photograph that tell you that? Write a complete sentence about the details you see in the photograph that tell us that they were taking Ruby to school. Tell me in the puzzle. So one big detail that I see is that Ruby and the marshals are walking into the school building. The photographs show us the school building, and they also show us the U.S. Marshals and Ruby walking into the school building. So the pictures match what is happening in the text. All right, number 5. So we are going to be looking at this page of the text. Number 5 says, what injustice do you see in this photo? Circle the one best answer. So looking at the photograph, think about what injustice is in this photograph. Is it A, people are too close to the school? B, people are yelling at Ruby for going to the white school? Or C, people cannot sit on the bus? Which of these sentences match what is happening in this photograph? Tell me in the puzzle. So the text tells us some people did not want a black child to go to the white school. They stood near the school. They yelled at me to go away. Look at what they're doing. They're holding up signs. We want segregation. And you can see really closely on their faces that these people are talking. They're not just talking, they are yelling. So B was the best option. People are yelling at Ruby for going to the white school. All right, and now we are looking at these 2 pages in the text. We are going to focus on the photograph first. So, who do we see in this photograph right here? Who are these 2 ladies in the photograph? Tell me in the Ed puzzle. So, these 2 ladies are grown up Ruby Bridges and an older Mrs. Henry. The text says, "Now I am grown up. I am married. I have children. One day, Mrs. Henry and I were both asked to be on a TV show. That was the first time we had seen each other in many years. Now we talk to each other often." So, this is a picture of Mrs. Henry and Ruby Bridges. Let's look at number 7. It says, which sentence shows how Ruby and Mrs. Henry feel about each other? So, how do they feel in their hearts about each other? A, one day, Mrs. Henry and I were both asked to be on a TV show. Does that describe how they feel about each other? Okay, let's move on to B. That was the first time we had seen each other in many years. Does that describe how they feel about each other? Or C, now we talk to each other often. Does that describe how they feel about each other? In the puzzle, you are going to either choose A, B, or C. So letter C is the best option because it tells us how they feel about each other. They love each other so much that they talk often. And number 8, how do they feel about each other? Write at least one complete sentence. So in the puzzle, I want you to tell me, how does Ruby Bridges and Mrs. Henry feel about each other? How do they feel about each other? Tell me in the puzzle. And number 9, it says, look back at your answer to question 8. What details from the photograph also make you think that? Write at least one complete sentence. In the photograph, what are some details that tell you that Mrs. Henry and Ruby Bridges care about each other? What details do you see that tell you that they care about each other? Write a complete sentence in the puzzle. So, a detail that I can see is that both of them are smiling and that Ruby Bridges is hugging Mrs. Henry. Those are details that can help us find meaning in a photograph. All right, Smarties, that is it for your new read assessment. Remember to keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things. And I will see you very soon with another lesson about our civil rights hero, Ruby Bridges.